The citizens of Delaware County have a long history of working together for clean water. So when an opportunity to study pollution in the White River became available, the Delaware County Soil and Water Conservation District decided to study non-point sources of water pollution in the upper White River watershed.
I'm Don Black. I'm a farmer here in Delaware County. I'm on the Delaware County Soil and Water Board. I have been involved with the Delaware County Soil and Water Board since 1997. And it was decided in approximately 1998 that the board would venture out into some other projects. We decided that we needed to be more involved in the community. The only way that we knew to get involved in the community was to write a grant.
Working with community leaders from urban and rural organizations, local foundations, and city-county government, the Delaware County Soil and Water Conservation District applied for a Federal Clean Water Act grant to develop a watershed management plan that would reduce non-point sources of pollution in the upper White River watershed area and to continue educating and informing the public about the importance of clean water.
This project is important to the community for a major reason is we can improve the quality of life. Will also be more appealing for economic development in the future. And quality of life, no matter where you are, has to be tied into clean water. And in our community, thanks to the Bureau of Water Quality and 30 years of the sanitary district trying to clean up point source pollution, one of our biggest tasks in the headwaters of the White River is to go to the non-point source pollution, things like sediment loading, nutrient loading, and whatnot, and try to work with the community with a broad group of folks that usually don't sit at the table together to come up with consensus building, which then can lead to implementation of best management practices adjacent to the headwater streams of the White River. Working at the headwaters is really important because being a headwater is no different than being the head of state or the head of the table. You have to provide the leadership and set the example for all the other communities that are downstream.
To identify and oversee the many activities needed to accomplish the project's goal, Tia Agnew was selected as the watershed coordinator. A steering committee was formed and several subcommittees created to help give direction to the project and provide other support necessary to collect data and information needed for the watershed management plan. This plan will serve as a guide for citizens both inside and outside the watershed area to help reduce and prevent local non-point source water pollution problems. A key to the success of the project has been the enthusiastic participation of local citizens. This was achieved through active community committees, public meetings, watershed tours and field days, and informational presentations to civic organizations, schools, and church groups. 3 sub-watersheds in Delaware County were identified within which extensive water quality and land use studies were conducted. A watershed is the land area that contributes runoff water to a specific stream, river, or lake. Large watersheds consist of several smaller sub-watersheds. By studying sub-watersheds, an accurate picture of the larger watershed can be obtained. The 3 sub-watersheds studied in this project were the Killbuck Mud Creek watershed, the Buck Creek watershed, and the Prairie Creek watershed. These sub-watersheds drain into the White River and are, therefore, part of the larger Upper White River watershed area. Since 1973, the Muncie Bureau of Water Quality has made great progress in reducing point sources of water pollution in the White River, but non-point sources of pollution still affect the quality of the water in the river. Point sources refer to pollution arising from a well-defined origin, such as discharge from an industrial plant or runoff from an animal feedlot. Non-point sources refer to pollution arising from an ill-defined or diffuse origin, such as runoff from cultivated fields, pasture lands, non-functioning septic systems, parking lots, and other urban areas. Both urban and agricultural sources of non-point pollution have been identified in the 3 sub-watersheds. Agricultural runoff is a concern in the project area due to the substantial acreage utilized for crop production. Key water quality issues arising from agricultural runoff are nutrient, pesticide, and sediment loading. The county's poorly and imperfectly drained soils and extensive tile drainage systems make the use of soil and water conservation best management practices especially important.
There are several ways that non-point pollution can be reduced. These are generally called best management practices. Some examples would include the use of filter strips along streams to reduce the amount of nutrients, pesticides, and sediment that is transported into the stream. Also soil testing for fertilizer applications, and that would apply both to urban sites as well as agricultural locations. With respect to pesticide application, it's always important to follow the directions and use according to the label. And finally, constructed wetlands are another strategy that we could use to improve water quality. That constructed wetland could be used either for septic systems or for agricultural operations.
Many private septic systems are located in the upper White River watershed area. Some do not function efficiently due to the inability of soils to properly filter the wastewater coming from them and can be a source of bacterial pollution. Most soils in the county are rated as having severe limitations for septic systems, and septic system failures are common. Growing urban sprawl exacerbates this problem. Water quality monitoring and land use analysis were important components in the White River Watershed Project.
Because the purpose of this activity is to develop a watershed management plan, we need to find out what the current condition of our streams is. These monitoring activities provide a baseline of information that will allow us to see the impacts of future best management practices that we implement. To assess the water quality monitoring information, we've been looking at the spatial aspects in the watershed, and to do that we got information from the Delaware-Muncie Plan Commission and the Delaware County GIS Department. That land use information is being used to determine where best management practices would be most effective and to better understand the data itself.
The way we use the land use analysis is we can see these relationships on a larger scale, on a watershed size scale, and compare those to, say, some of the biological or chemical data that we've got in, and we can say, well, you know, that we have a poor, you know, sampling site here. What's upstream from it? We can look and we can see how much development there is, how much industrial or agricultural is upstream from that could be leading to that poor reading at that site. We've also collected some data that follows right along the river corridors at a very narrow width at a much more detailed level that really complements the biological sampling data that we've collected too. It is a land cover, which is different from land use because it is what actual material is on the ground rather than what it's used for. So we have grasses and woodland, agricultural instead of residential, which would be a land use. Another activity that we did along with the land use was we actually took paper maps to the subcommittees for each sub-watershed and had them, just from their memory, show us what they know is on the land. So we use that to gather tillage data that then is coded into the land use along with the type of land use that then can be brought out later to show, you know, what type of tillage is going on within the sub-watersheds. Delaware County, previous to this project, really didn't have any land use data. So this is like a new layer that we've created to add to our, and we have around 90 layers of different data from roads to streams to corporate limits. So this is a very good addition to the county's data set. We're still working to complete it for the rest of the county, but the pilot project was the 3 sub-watersheds.
Determining the water quality in the 3 sub-watersheds and identifying the major land uses were necessary for identifying types and sources of water pollution. Only then can a watershed management plan be developed to reduce pollution and improve water quality.
As part of the monitoring activities, the Department of Natural Resources and Environmental Management, along with the Bureau of Water Quality, collected samples at 22 locations. We looked at a number of different parameters. That list is pretty long, so I'll just provide a few of those. We looked at total suspended solids, nutrients, and biological indicators such as fish and E. coli bacteria. As a result of the monitoring activities, we can draw some preliminary conclusions at this point in time. There are several parameters that fit within the state standards or guidelines, and those include stream temperature, dissolved oxygen, and pH. On the other hand, some of the parameters have exceeded state standards or guidelines, and that includes E. coli, total suspended solids, nitrogen, phosphorus, and pesticides.
The Watershed Management Plan will serve as a tool for Delaware County citizens, local organizations, and governmental agencies to work together to ensure that the White River and its tributaries provide the high-quality water resource necessary for economic development and the personal needs of the people who live in the Upper White River watershed area.
Everyone in this watershed is affected by the water quality. The farmers, the small landowners, the people with the small horse farm, all of us are involved. When we draw water out of our wells, we are affected by the results of what we do. One of the main reasons I'm interested in this watershed project is for the interest of my grandchildren, the neighbors, their children, and it's something that we should maintain and keep available for all future generations, no matter who lives in this area.